Hello and welcome back to TNWKS, the Now We Know show, the show where we discuss a topic of interest and by the end we will have learned something new and hopefully you will too. I'm Zak.
And I'm Buzz. And yes, we clung hold of the wreckage of 2023.
Oh, no, you tell me about it.
We've made it into 2024.
Celebration time, come on. Do. And it's time to do another one of our legendary podcasts.
Yes, and the first one of the year is all about prepping.
Prepping!
For 2024.
No way! If you enjoy the Now We Know Show podcast, support Zak Wylde Productions on Patreon or join our members on YouTube for early access, ad-free content and exclusive episodes.
It's great to be back in the Dungeon Studios.
It is. It's we're wiping off the dust off the walls, clearing away the cobwebs.
Got rid of all the party poppers and the leftover mince pies.
Oh, do you remember that? That was hilarious.
The mince pies, can we ever forget?
Don't get me started.
No. I think I'll need the rest of the year to kind of face another mince pie, to be honest with you. Anyway, before we start, it's that time in our first episode of the year for Weird and Wonderful.
So for this Weird and Wonderful story, I have brought in one.
You have brought in one, Zak.
Yes, I have. Okay, so what's the Weird and Wonderful story that I brought in?
I have no idea.
That's what I'm going to tell you now.
Let's start 2024 with a good one.
Okie dokie. So this is the headline.
Okay.
Camera catches mouse-proud rodent tidying man shed.
Ooh, I may have heard about this, but for those listeners out there across the world...
Here it is.
So
a Welsh tidy mouse has been sneaking into 75-year-old Rodney Holbrook's shed in Powells every night since early October and tidying it.
Is this the chap in Wales?
It is in Wales. So he lives in Bullith Wells, which is 60 miles north of Cardiff.
And so this mouse, I actually saw the video to this, and it's a really good one to start on if you want my opinion, because if you haven't seen the video, so if you're listening to us around the world, which you surely are, you can probably...
I've got the stats to prove it.
Okay, you can probably go onto YouTube or whatever and find this tidy mouse.
Yeah, this mouse that's tidying up this guy's shed.
It's quite hilarious because he's like left his shed in the evening. Left a night vision camera there because every time he came... The thing is, let's take it back to the beginning. He didn't know what was happening.
No, that was the thing, and he then investigated because
he was leaving
things
his shed.
Kept appearing in weird places. So one of the examples was he was leaving seeds out for the birds, and then he kept finding it in his shoes.
That's right. I think a lot of nuts went missing, and then in a drawer he found one of his slippers filled up with nuts.
That's very much the case. And further to that, he's found screwdrivers and bits of like wire and fencing all moved and tidied up.
Yeah, but the thing is not just moved, as you say. Tidied up is the point, because he had a box on his worktop.
Yeah.
And the mouse was actually taking stuff and filling the box up. So he was basically clearing the worktop of stuff that he'd left out and tidying it all into a box.
Yeah.
Which is, when you see the video...
Do the mice eat nuts?
Oh gosh, yes, they do.
So they're basically storing it somewhere,
I think to solve the magical conundrum of the tidying mouse, I think basically what it was doing is it was hiding nuts in this box and then covering it with all the other stuff. So it looked like his bench had been tidied, but what it's doing is it's literally just hiding the food stores that it squirreled away. As a moused away.
To bring this onto the topic of the podcast, could we consider this mouse a prepper?
Definitely. That's a good point.
That's a good little segue into that.
Segue straight into that, yes. This is the prepping mouse. I never really thought of it.
Animals. Like proof. They prep.
Yes. And we're humans, and we're meant to be far more advanced than animals. And so therefore, if you're not a prepper, you're not as clever as a mouse. Oof. Is that what we're saying? I don't know.
Well, we're saying a mouse has intelligence is the thing.
Well, it's obviously got its...
priorities right.
Priorities right. It's making sure it's got a food store to get it through the winter months. So, let's talk about prepping for 2024.
Well, I mean, we're a couple of days in. We've survived so far, and it has been a tumultuous time, hasn't it?
Yeah, and we're going to cover a few of these things that have been happening recently. But first of all, what I want to start off it's a positive thing. You see, I don't want to start off saying that we're talking about prepping for 2024 as if we're prepping for disaster and doom. Yeah.
I mean, if the last few days have been anything to go by.
What, weather-wise, you mean?
Yeah, weather-wise, very much so.
Yeah, around the UK.
All around the world.
Around the world, yeah.
In Japan, you had all those earthquakes and things.
Yeah, and the tsunami that
And the plane crashes.
Plane crashes and things. So, I'd rather take more positive spin on it, Zach.
I want to. I really, really want to.
So I want to say, rather than looking at it that you're prepping for disaster, we are prepping with a mind to prevent disaster.
Okay.
Now, of course, disasters can be out of our hands, but we can do a lot.
Well, that's why we prep.
Yeah. But we can do a lot of things to lessen the impact.
That's a good way of putting it.
Yeah. So, I mean, one of the things that for 2024 that I think everybody's going to have to take on board are these extreme weather events, because they are literally hitting everybody everywhere.
Yeah, more frequently.
The amount of floods that we've had, even in our own region.
Yeah, in Bedford.
I mean, we travelled up to Bedford a couple of days ago, and the rain had stopped, but the water from the Great Ouse was just cascading
into the park
and everywhere, just flooding the outlying fields.
Swans just like swimming across the field. It's kind of a weird sight.
Yeah, and it's getting worse. It's getting worse, and I've got some little stats which I picked up today. You just bear with me for a second. So we have a situation where temperatures. So if you look at pre-industrial temperatures, we are now 1.48% hotter than pre-industrial temperatures. Okay, and that's what's creating this issue. And the global average air temperature has smashed all records year on year.
Well, that points towards crazy
on top of that,
statistics.
sea surface temperatures have increased, breaking all previous records.
Yeah.
And 2024 is expected to be the hottest year on record from pre-industrial temperatures. So we are heading in that global warming direction that we're being warned so much about very rapidly. Now, before the festive season back in 2023.
So long
yesterday.
So long ago.
They had the COPs meeting out in...
COP23.
That's right. Yeah. COP23, yeah, funny enough, it's COP23.
It's the climate conference,
It's the climate conference. Getting all the world's nations together to try and hammer out agreements to try and fight against this. And they announced this kind of never-before agreement across the board that all countries would try and cut down on fossil fuels in order to combat global warming.
Yeah.
But it has to still be pointed out that the point that was signed, 80% of the world's power comes from fossil fuels.
Yeah.
So
I see the problem here.
Yeah, the problem is agreeing to it is one thing, doing something about it is another, and that doing having an effect in the immediate future.
Yeah, and I mean, not every country on the planet actually attended.
No.
So you've got... Did China go?
I'm not sure if they did or not.
Well, I think Russia certainly didn't.
Yeah, I'm sure India did. But the problem you have, I mean, is places like India, the big industrial countries are actually increasing their fossil fuel output. They're building more fossil fuel burning power stations.
And I mean, have you seen some of those videos of literally mountains of crap and rubbish being burned?
Oh yeah, using
constantly.
That as fuel. Well, that's one of my big hoo-has. I'm going slightly off tangent here, where people love to eat tofu.
Oh dear.
Yeah, which is a derivative of soya.
Yeah.
And I think it was last year, I watched a documentary and I followed up with a bit of investigations, just double check and made sure that all the facts were credible. And out in the Far East, where they're literally cutting down rainforests to plant soya plantations, they're taking the soya and the tofu is kind of boiled up boiled up to make the tofu. And in the past, they used to have these kind of like industrial. It's done quite sort of rurally. It's not like in a huge industrial place. There's lots of rural ovens that are boiling this stuff up, and they used to use wood. So the wood was being cut down from the rainforests
to make the tofu.
Which
is touted as being like a healthy thing.
option. Get away from eating meat. That's it.
Type of thing.
Your vegans and things will live off that stuff probably. But the point, and I'm not knocking that at all. It's good to have a healthy lifestyle
but know where your stuff comes from.
Know where your stuff comes from, because what they're doing is they've stopped using timber as a fuel because it's too expensive. So what they're doing is they're burning all the plastic refuse that is getting exported from Western countries and dumped over in these.
I mean, that's a problem unto itself.
And they're literally burning plastic to make the tofu, and the local and surrounding areas, the villages, are getting polluted with all this.
Doesn't that sound a bit counterintuitive to me?
No, so don't.
Isn't that like blissful ignorance on the part of the people
the
who actually
tofu
consuming
production is kind of like going out here. But anyway, we're kind of getting off the track of
Now You Know show. Now we know how you make tofu, and it's not necessarily environmentally friendly.
Exactly. So anyway, we're talking about prepping, but in a positive way.
Yes, positive. That's what we want.
And one of the other things that was announced last year, because we're in the UK and is going to be happening this year, it's already in the throes.
In the motions.
Is the government and okay, we're in election year as well. Remember, I mean, we've got
the political side of things is literally.
I think there's elections
all up in the air.
Elections all over the world. I think obviously you've got US election.
I think there was an official count that it's like one of the biggest years for
elections,
politics ever.
But saying that, whoever ends up being the party politic, the party in control, the civil servants and the government continues to, like a huge machine, always it's turning over behind the scenes. It doesn't really matter. Well, it does matter, I suppose, to a certain extent, which party's in charge, but things are continually
in the motions.
So the government, let's just use the term the government, even if it changes, have started a new initiative called the Resilience Academy, which they are launching in 2024, and it is meant to be bringing, because of all these issues that obviously we've gone through a pandemic and learned lots of lessons from that. We're getting hit by these extreme weather phenomena, so we're getting all this heavy
flooding, wildfires.
And in the summertime we're getting all these wildfires that we used to get them sporadically,
occasionally, but now we're getting them every year.
Villages in Kent that have gone up in smoke and places like that. Yeah. So and not only that, the whole of Europe.
We've talked about this in previous podcasts.
Yeah, okay, so these events are getting worse and worse, and so the government have created this new initiative called the Resilience Academy, which is meant to bring everybody together. And when I say everybody together, that's government departments, it's all the emergency services, local businesses, local councils and local authorities, right down to the individual citizen,
right, in
order to be part of this framework for, it's called resilience, but if you can punch it up on the official UK government's website and punch up the Resilience Academy, and lots to read through there, and it will tell you about how they want people to be in a state of preparedness. They like avoiding the word prepping, but they will use the word preparedness, and to be prepared,
or to be ready for something,
and to be resilient. Okay, that's the way it's the resilient.
I see what you're getting at.
Rather than being, the Preparedness Academy.
Yeah,
I think that's too close for them to call it that, because it's too close to prepping.
And obviously, that obviously has lots of connotations that are not necessarily deemed from the public as all being good.
Yeah. And
it all boils down to that idea of the doomsday prepper thing.
The doomsday prepper.
And we've already talked about that, and that is not thing.
The doomsday prepper
is a thing,
but I think that it's getting old.
That's an extreme.
Now.
That's an extreme.
It's getting old hat, and people I think their views are starting to change, and there's a lot of people out there. I mean, I've got family, friends, I've got family that when I talk to them, and they all say, Uncle Buzz, it's when the zombie apocalypse happens, you'll be all right.
I mean, yes, we will.
But that's one of the things about prepping, if you like, because if you prep for realistic events,
instead of like ones that are popularized by the examples are always going to be movies and things. So zombie apocalypse, massive viral epidemic. Well, I mean, we had COVID. We had COVID.
We'll cover that bit as well in this podcast, but but not too much because everybody's bored of it. But an asteroid striking the Earth, these, everybody loves
massive disaster scenarios.
But for somebody living in a small village that is suddenly being flooded out.
Yeah,
that is just as big a disaster. Yeah. And it's localized, and it's there. It's their home that's being destroyed.
Yeah.
And so what I want to talk about is the kind of preparedness, the prepping you can do, which is positive, that everybody should do, but not because you're worried, and you shouldn't be going to bed thinking I can't sleep at night because I'm worried about some kind of disaster happening. But the opposite really is you go to bed thinking I'm prepared and happy and I feel content, reassured and relaxed.
Yeah.
Because I've taken steps towards making any kind of situation that much easier for myself and my family. Yeah. So rather than it being some stupid doomsday prepper approach, it's what can we do on an everyday scale to make life sensibly, easy for ourselves? So, coming back to these flash floods, these things with these extreme weather.
I think actually on that point that we've actually come off very lightly.
Yeah.
Luckily, I mean, around us. There's been very high flooding.
You're physically talking about us.
Yeah, us.
Right, where we are,
because we live by a river.
We do.
We have been flooded before.
Our property borders a river, and we are officially on a floodplain.
Yeah.
And they are doing a lot more building in our area, which I'm not happy about. But they've dug out extra overflow
things to kind of offset that.
Reservoirs and things to try and offset that. So hopefully, that will make an improvement. Now, I've got my fingers crossed on what I'm going to say now. As we already mentioned earlier in the podcast, Bedford's been flooded out. Lots of areas around here are flooded at the moment, but we haven't been.
Yeah, which is kind of weird.
We haven't been. We've actually, I'd expected to have had at least part of our property completely sodden.
Yeah.
When you're just walking in, it's just sodden. But that hasn't happened. So I'm kind of wondering at the moment, because the building hasn't started, but they have put in these extra reservoirs, that they've been taking an excess load of water off the runoff.
Yeah, so proof is in the pudding almost.
Almost, and I've got my fingers crossed here, because they haven't, I've got to say this here, they haven't started the building. Once we've got the extra housing locally built...
Is the offset,
and
then
you've got the road surfaces, all those roofs, the land is then missing that the water would have soaked into before.
Yeah.
Are we then going to
feel the
impact?
Effects.
Yeah, exactly. So that's
keep the electrics off the ground, is what I say.
Well, there you go. You've just come up with a simple bit of prepping. So, if you're in a situation where you have been flooded out, or you've decided to put an outbuilding in your garden or somewhere, something like that, or just, rejig your garage, make sure the sockets are raised off the floor. That's a simple bit of prepping.
Hey, huzzah!
Then if you get flooded, you just go, hey, okay, I'm not happy I'll be flooded, but the point is, my electrics aren't all full.
Well, I think I can rewire a plug, which is quite cool.
There we go. They should teach people to do that all the time. Anyway, and basic health and safety, not health and safety, first aid would be good.
That and changing washers on taps. I learned that at Scouts. Probably one of the last actual useful things I learned.
There you go, Scouts, they're all preppers, you see.
Well, I'm not sure about now, but...
Well, let's not...
Now it's just lots of ball games.
Let's not knock the Scout Association.
Oh, no way. It's amazing.
In the UK, it's probably one of the last kind of societies that allows you a little bit of...
A little bit.
Contact.
But, I mean... The regulations and things you can't really have
up so much,
especially can't have kids running around with penknives.
Well, back in my day, I was allowed to walk around with a big sheath knife, so and
good times.
Good times. Anyhow, so practical prepping on a positive note for your household. Okay. Always have an EDC. We've done an EDC.
If you
podcast.
haven't listened to that podcast, go and take a look.
Just an everyday carry. Make sure you got that around with you. Then we have the next stage up, which I would say would be the grab bag, but not as high as the bob. Okay.
So, these are terms that I'm familiar with, but obviously listeners.
So a grab
so
bag
much.
is self-explanatory. It's a bag you grab and run. Okay, and that is something that if you're in a flood zone.
Is that like bugging out?
No, because you see, a grab bag would be, for instance, say you were in a zone where, everybody can be affected by something. Others. Obviously, it's a sliding scale, so they can be affected less. So, obviously, if you're in low-lying land near a river, higher probability, like over in Gloucestershire, Tewkesbury got flooded out again.
Yeah.
York's been flooded out. So, if you're in those kind of places, you know that you are going to be affected probably by flooding.
Yeah. And not volcanoes.
But if you live in, say, Sheffield, and you're up on the top of Hillsborough or somewhere where it's a high place, you can say, well, I'm never going to get flooded out, that's fine. But it doesn't mean you might not get affected by fire, a wildfire or something off the moors.
Severe wind.
Or wind damage if there was a storm coming in, things like that. So a grab bag is a bag that you've got ready. So if suddenly the emergency services say, for whatever reason, and it could be something like, if heaven forbid, if there was a terrorist attack and they wanted to clear an area and evacuate people
quickly,
or a gas leak, something like that, gas leak, power outages, I don't know, but you need to leave the house.
Yeah,
you want to be able to say, I can grab that bag. If I'm going to end up in a community centre somewhere, I've got that bag and it's got clothes in, it's got some snacks in, it's got some bottles of water, it's got phone charger, it's got all those sort of things that I'm going to need. Most importantly, and this is the one thing that you should always have prepped, without a shadow of a doubt, if you live in so whether you rent a property or you've got a mortgage or you've paid your mortgage off and you own a property, wherever you are, you've got things such as your driving licence, passport, home insurance certifications. You've got things like tax paperwork for tax, life insurance, loads of different very official bits of paperwork that if that went up in smoke or got flooded
like deeds
out,
to a property and things like that.
Deeds to a property, so if all that paperwork went up in smoke, your birth certificates, your marriage certificates,
like your degree certificates and things, your qualifications,
all that stuff, if that went up in smoke or got flooded and destroyed,
very, very official documents.
You are just adding to the trauma of that disaster.
Yeah.
One thing is to say, okay, the house has been damaged. I've got to get onto the insurance company. Thankfully, I've got my insurance papers. I've got to go onto the insurance company. They're going to instruct a loss adjuster to come around, get a builder involved and get the property sorted. But if you've actually lost all that vital
your official documentation proving that actually that is your property and that is your stuff.
Even the number that you probably think, I've got house insurance, but who do I ring? I don't know. It's going to save a lot of hassle if you get that paperwork, get it into a dry bag folder. Okay, you can pick them up dirt cheap, so it's like a Ziploc bag that is waterproof. First stage, and put it into also a fireproof box. You can get.
Are we talking like a safe?
You can get. If you want to go full safe, you can go full safe. If you want to go for, you can
clues in the name there.
If you want to go for just a fireproof, you can get like cash boxes, things like that.
Oh yeah,
much smaller, but you can get them and they're fireproof.
Yeah.
So you get something that is a small fireproof cash box will easily take your passports, driving license, things like that. But the more paperwork you got, the bigger the box you want. But you want to have that fireproof, and so in the event of a quick, you've got to get out of here. Yeah. You've got your grab bag.
Like to such an extreme, you've got your grab bag and you've got that
and
documentation.
You know exactly where you can go for that. The documentation, you don't want to keep it with your grab bag.
No.
You want to, ideally, whatever documentation you have, you want that in a safe, secure location. Only you know where it is, not stuck in a cardboard box in the bottom of your wardrobe. Because obviously just in everyday life, we live in everyday life, you could get burglaries. You don't want all that important stuff being stolen.
Or just literally destroyed.
Or destroyed, So make sure it's secure, but make sure that it's all together. It's protected against fire and water and theft, and you can grab it and chuck it in your bag and be out in literally no time at all. And then when the situation is over,
to a stage where you don't really have to think about, where's that?
Oh,
you
God.
know.
Can you imagine? I've got to reapply for my driving licence.
Yeah.
I've got to reapply for my passport. I need my birth certificate's gone up in smoke.
Yeah, you've got to prove your identity for whatever reason.
No, you just don't want to go there.
No.
You don't want to go there. And a simple prep, as I've described, even if you haven't got a safe box to put it in, but you have got that waterproof bag to put it in, and you know where it is, and you've got it stashed away somewhere, only you know where it is, but you can grab it quick and get out. I mean, the idea of having it in a fireproof box is simply because if something happened to your property when you weren't there, or something, then you'd know that you hopefully secured it well enough to survive.
Or if it was something that was like a disaster or whatever, you could go back when it's past.
Yeah, and hopefully there it is still intact. You don't want the headache of those important bits of paperwork being lost.
No.
That's a positive prep for 2024. A very simple one. Grab bag and that. Now, you mentioned about what the difference between a grab bag and a bob. People are out there maybe scratching their heads. I know a lot of the people that are listening to us will already know what a bob is.
Yeah.
And we will do a full podcast on a bob. A bob is a
bug out bag.
So it's an abbreviation.
We covered this in the EDC.
Yeah, we covered it briefly, but we haven't actually done a specific Bob podcast. So a bob is slightly different from a grab bag. So a bob is maybe, if you can imagine, probably the best thing you can imagine is a good old backpack rucksack.
Right.
You've got some clothes in there. You've probably got pretty much what you've got in your grab bag, but more.
Right.
You've got more, because in there you've got sleep system. Okay, that's what the old bushcrafters like to say. What's your sleep system? Okay, so that
I've got the, what's it, Pro X 5444.
Yeah, exactly.
I.
So that's and that could be anything from a micro air mattress to a rolled sleeping mat, to including a
bivy
bag, a lightweight sleeping bag,
simple blanket,
a tarp to make a cover out of.
Or it could be one of those ones where it's like a sleeping bag but a suit.
Yeah, you could do that, Zach. You could do that, but
or are you going to be wearing that all of the time?
No, but the problem is, again, it's storage space.
Okay.
You want to go fast and light. So in your bug out bag, that would be designed for severe emergencies. Say you live out in the countryside somewhere, emergency services maybe aren't there to immediately be there to give you a hand to help you out. You suddenly find yourself in a situation where that flood's coming in.
Oh no, the flood is coming in. I'm reenacting the scene.
Reenact it. Okay,
what am I going to do?
You've already worked out escape routes, etc. You know that you can't go down the road because the ford down the road, the ford being where the river crosses the road, is
electrical wire things have fallen over. They're blocking the exit route.
But nearby there's some right high ground you can get to. If you get to that high ground,
then I'm safe.
Safe. But it's pouring with rain. It's dark. It's cold. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, having a grab bag is fine, but the grab bag that's designed to take you to the community centre. That's designed to go with you while the emergency services are helping you get to a place of safety.
Yeah.
But if you don't have
it's not your full gear, is it?
No. So what you need is to be able to say, okay, I can get myself out of here and my family if needs be.
Yeah.
Get them to a safe location, and whether it's pouring with rain, snowing, blisteringly hot, or whatever, you've got shelter and you've got comfort, you've got bedding, and so it's the full
package.
Okay. Yes, talking about prepping, if you want to take that stage further, then if you're going to go down the extreme routes of prepping where you're saying, you've got civil unrest etc.
Rioting.
Rioting in the streets. And
Well, mate, it could be like the whole petrol and toilet roll scenario we had a few years ago.
Yeah, I mean, there's been rioting many times over the years in London.
I mean, there's been rioting like not too long ago, actually.
But I don't want to get anybody's. I don't want to
Feathers ruffled.
Yeah, feathers ruffled, and we try and keep it realistic, because if you've got that bug out bag sorted, then of course, if you're in that extreme situation, which we might be kind of joking about a little bit in the UK where we're talking here in the studio, but there's plenty of places in the world that rioting. I mean, think if you're in Palestine at the moment, if you had a bug out bag with your family and you've got all this stuff, you can get out. And you know that when you get out from that disaster area and you're into some kind of safe zone, that you've got bedding and stuff with you. Yeah, you're not all huddled together, shivering and
relying
stuff.
on supposedly
the supplies aren't coming in.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
it's not madness to discuss these subjects. Yes, you might live in a very comfortable country like the UK, but there's plenty of places. You just
where the norm here is very much
not the norm.
Not the norm somewhere else.
And what we're talking about is a very everyday practical prep. Yeah. But I'm trying to put a spin on it for countries like the UK, places. So you might want a bug out bag for simply that occasion, where you need to be able to take control of the situation for yourself or your family, and everybody is comfortable and protected from the elements until such a time as the emergency is over.
Yeah. So when it comes to the bug out bag, are we going to do a separate podcast?
Yeah,
exploring what is actually going to go in.
Yeah, I think that would be a good one, because a lot of people do ask, and a lot of people do have different things that they have in their bug out
maybe we
bags.
could bring somebody in for that.
Yeah, I think might get Chaz, if he's listening out there. It would be nice to get you in for a bug out bag one. But anyway, prepping for 2024. So yes, we have extreme weather conditions coming. We should have at least a grab bag in place and our household documentation safe and secure. Makes sense, doesn't it?
It does.
Okay, and it's not being, disaster zone mentality.
There's not that kind of. It's not that paranoia, is it?
Yeah, that's the thing. A lot of people who don't prep think that preppers
is automatically
paranoia.
That paranoia. Yeah.
Whereas we are trying to get across that prepping is actually a practical thing that makes you sleep well at night.
Yeah, it's a thing to be normalised.
It should be normalised, and I think that's where the government initiative for the Resilience Academy is trying to do exactly that. It's trying to normalise it right down to street level, to actual individual households, to make sure that each individual household, depending on where they live,
has at least some degree of
resilience
and preparedness for
against these kind of
situations.
Now, when it came to, and you did mention about the pandemic, I saw Chaz over the festive period, and the question came up about who predicted the pandemic, and he quite rightfully stuck his hand up and said, I did, and it's because pandemics happen, and not necessarily pandemics as in worldwide. Throughout the ages, we've had things like plagues and infections and famines, and it can be very localized to where you are, what country you're in, what the weather, back to the weather conditions, what the weather conditions are doing, whether crops have failed, whether what it's war torn or whatever.
Yeah. Well, a good example of that, even to the degree of as being a food source, they've had lots of bird flu stuff going.
Oh yeah, we've got that. So when it comes
especially in this part of the country.
So when it comes to talking briefly about the pandemic situation, it's something that was inevitably going to happen
at some point. Yeah.
But nobody really paid that much attention to it. So when the pandemic did happen, and the lockdown happened, we weren't running to the shop to buy toilet roll and pasta. No. We already had.
But it was like it was an almost kind of
It
was a weird situation to be in.
It was a weird situation, a weird feeling.
Yeah.
And but people were doing that. Like, we went to once it sort of calmed down a little bit.
Yeah.
And I've got photographs. I thought it was very important to photograph the period during the pandemic.
And they're very poignant. Yeah.
going to supermarkets where literally the whole aisles were cleared.
Yeah.
I've got a photograph, which is quite funny. Whole aisle cleared.
Yeah.
It's quite a sad photograph, if I recall, which has got just an old chap with his walking stick and an empty basket going down the aisle.
Yeah.
You can imagine that.
Yeah.
On the lighter side, the vegan area was still stuffed full of food.
Poor guy. Poor guy.
But no, I kid you not. It was like went past this little section of vegan food, and it was loads. Everything else was wiped out. Don't know what that says exactly, but there you go.
It's all that tofu again,
It's all
isn't
the
it?
tofu again. But I took photographs of when all the tills were literally surrounded by perspex. Yeah.
Some of them have still got it.
Some of them have still got it, and some of them, like places like
Garages. I know.
I think petrol stations can be forgiven for that because it's kind of they were forcibly had to put that in for the pandemic, but it's also become a bit more of added security for the staff behind the counter.
Yeah.
So that's probably why they've left it.
I mean, banks already had it.
Yeah, banks already had it. But places like, I remember Morrison's, our local Morrison's, it just had these huge plastic booths around everything, which are all gone now. They've all gone.
They're gone.
But I've got photographs, and the thing is, with the pandemic, it will happen again.
Yeah.
So what I've got to say is, be positive, okay? If you got caught out in the past, you don't need to get caught out in the future.
And you're lucky that wasn't. I'm not saying it wasn't bad, but it could have been a lot worse.
I mean, obviously, thousands of people did lose their lives. The pandemic affected people in different ways because a lot of it, I think, was, again, don't quote me on this exactly, but I think a lot came down to genetics with the type of strain of COVID that people got.
Right.
Some people were really badly affected. It was shutting down.
More susceptible.
Yeah, it was shutting down their internal organs and their own immune system were attacking themselves. Other people, like us, didn't touch us at all.
No.
But that's not to say that something in the future could be a lot worse. Now, I say a lot worse because anything that is milder or lower than what we experienced in the COVID pandemic probably wouldn't even get notched up as a pandemic.
I mean, the common cold or whatever, seasonal flu.
Yeah, it's seasonal flu. They'll monitor things like swine flu, which is another one. You mentioned the bird flu.
Yeah.
But you've got swine flu. And when another pandemic hits, which it inevitably will, it will be severe. Might be on the same level as COVID, but it could be a lot worse.
Yeah.
And so if it was a lot worse, what's going to happen is
maybe those skeptics won't be so skeptical.
If you had a worse scenario, you're going to get locked down.
Yeah.
And you're going to get
martial law. You're going to get locked down hard.
Hard. Especially after last time, you're going to get locked down hard. So it's better to be comfortable and to be prepped for these things.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean paranoia. That's the point.
No, we don't want these things to happen.
No, and I think that's the thing. I think that's the whole point of, and again, harking on about the Resilience Academy, but it's, as a prepper, it's nice to see that your own government is paying attention and taking notice and trying to bring it to the individual people, the individual citizens, and say, it's not a bad thing if you actually think ahead.
Entry-level prepping.
There are countries out there around the world that actually do tell their citizens to make sure that they have
a good idea,
supplies, etc. And of course, if you live in places like in the States and you live in I think it's Oklahoma. Is it Oklahoma where you get a lot of the tornadoes? Not tornadoes, twisters.
They are tornadoes.
Tornadoes?
Yeah, tornadoes.
Yeah, well, maybe I'm thinking hurricanes as the other one. Yeah, tornadoes. So you get they dive down into their underground bunkers, don't they?
Yeah.
To avoid the tornadoes.
Oh, I mean, underground bunkers and things are very popular over in the States.
Yeah, I mean, that's something we can't have because we live on a floodplain. Damn. I'd have snorkels or some breathing equipment.
Well, maybe we'll have to have some, like...
Or a hot air balloon might be better.
What about radioactive waste so we can evolve gills?
I don't
want to do that.
Maybe a dirigible, so instead of going down, we go up.
We can be sky people.
Sky people, that's it. It'd be a whole new sort of thing instead of water world. It'd be sky world. There you go.
Isn't that just mortal engines? Kind of. They do go up in the sky.
Yeah, they do a bit.
But then they have like London on wheels.
London on wheels, which is quite funny.
The movie.
The movie. But yeah, so huzzah.
So is this Resilience Academy thing? Is it a lot like the stay in? What's the stay in one we did?
Yeah, the go in, stay in, tune in.
That's it.
It's funny you should bring that one up, actually, because as we reported in our podcast on that initiative, it was at a big flaw.
Yeah,
It had a
that
big
was very
flaw
much the
because
case.
it was telling you it doesn't matter where your kids are. So if your kids at school, leave the kids because they're going to get looked after.
By who? Exactly.
And they said, no. And it says it on the official local authority websites. And I'm not going to go into
Plural.
I'm not going to go into because I checked it all over the UK. And you're not going to have to go into big discussion about it because you can go and listen to the actual podcast.
Please do.
However, I was at a flooding seminar for our local area before Christmas, and lo and behold, the two safety officials from our local government, county council, were there who run that scheme.
Do they?
Yes, they're the two people that were in charge of it. And I pointed out this flaw, and they actually didn't know anything about it. So
That's handy.
while I
Isn't it?
was sitting there at the table and somebody was giving a lecture about flooding, I punched it up on my phone and passed it to them. I think they were quite astonished at reading this. Your children will be cared for.
Yeah.
And I also told them that I'd spoken to several different school teachers and heads of schools, and they knew nothing about it and have no plan in place to look after anybody's kids.
Or supplies.
Or supplies or anything. Anyway, after the seminar, they actually came over and thanked me for pointing this out to them.
Maybe we're making waves on that point.
So hopefully somebody's had a word
Please,
with
we
somebody.
would love to know the official plan, other than just saying it's a plan and not having
Not
anything.
having a plan. It's a plan just to make the general public feel like there's a plan.
Yeah.
It's kind of like,
Or maybe they're just going to say that we're looking into it too deeply.
maybe it's kind of like about 1/12 of a plan.
That's barely an idea. Or kind of a Guardians of the Galaxy
Yeah,
reference there.
we could get film referencing.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, so the as far as I'm aware, at this present moment of recording, the Resilience Academy website has not been gone active. But as I say, I have been keeping my eye on the gov.org website, which gives you all the information about what they're trying to do. It's not a bad idea because, as I say, bringing all these different people together in order that there is a framework in place to help people to be prepared for emergencies, whether it be a localised emergency or a national emergency, right across the scale. There are volunteer organisations already out there that deal with helping out with flooding and fires and things, and it's a case of bringing all these together and bringing the general public together. As I say, when I was at this flood meeting, there were members of the general public there that, because they live in a flood zone, as soon as it starts raining, they take photographs like every hour, because they're retired, of how the water's rising and send them in to their local flood alert initiative, so that the local or the emergency services, should I say, are made aware of what's happening in local areas because people are there on the ground. Because the emergency services haven't got enough people to spread around just to keep an eye on what may suddenly turn into a major disaster.
Yeah, it's all kind of all right being helpless, but actually having that ability to help with the actual help operation actually is quite good.
When we talk about an extreme survival situation, an extreme situation to be prepared for, that maybe more towards down the lines of your doomsday preppers. The doomsday preppers, I think there's kind of like two different types of people out there. The preppers that are practical preppers like us, I like to call us practical preppers. And there's preppers that very much keep themselves to themselves.
Yeah,
for fear.
Well, that's that paranoia, isn't it?
The paranoia that anybody's going to find out about them. And then there's others that want a community group.
Yeah.
That can club
Ones that band together,
help each other, and to protect themselves against other people.
Not Mad Max style, though.
Not Mad Max style. Well, give it 10 years, 20 years. Mad Max has been ruined for me because rather than everybody driving around in like gigantic diesel-driven
muscle
cars, they'll all be chasing each other in
electric scooters.
And they're saying, "Excuse me, I've got to wait for my solar panel to charge
up. Can I charge this, please?" Oh no!
I am the road warrior.
I am the pavement warrior.
with my electric scooter.
My body is plastic.
My body is plastic. My blood is
electric.
Electric. No, it's not. It's just normal blood.
No, it's just regular blood.
Just regular blood. Yeah, so it's quite funny. But talking about that, a good film to watch is Threads.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah.
So if anybody's not seen Threads, the reason I mention that is because a lot of preppers out there think that if there is a major disaster that is going to cause
catastrophe of almost apocalyptic proportions,
that if there is civil unrest, etc., that it's all going to be the law of the wasteland. It won't happen like that immediately.
Yeah,
because
it's got to get to that.
The local authorities, and with having an initiative like the Resilience Academy, the local authorities kick in with the emergency services, with the local businesses, to have a network, and they have a network of citizens as well.
Yeah.
To oversee food
distribution,
water distribution, clothes, It's that network of the world we live in at the moment still exists.
Yeah.
You're not going to get to that Mad Max type world until
overnight,
until all that has collapsed. So if you think you're going to suddenly go rogue the day after, and be walking up and down the high street with your crossbow, fending people off for a tin of beans at the local corner shop,
well,
you might find that you've got a network of things.
I'd be a bit older before that.
A network of things, local government and everything.
But again, going back to Threads, it's the kind of almost imposed, already set up kind of network of things.
Yeah,
and even in Survivors almost as well.
That was set up that was a 70s film, wasn't it? Or was it 80s?
Oh, I'm not sure.
Could have been on the cusp.
Yeah, it's around there.
I can't remember if Threads came. I think Threads was 70s. Did it come before Where the Wind Blows?
Oh, that's that animated one, isn't it? That's scary as well.
That was when we were living through the nuclear threat.
Yeah.
Which we kind of had thrown in our faces recently with Putin, although that the threat level feels as if it's sort of gone off a little bit. Or
is that a false sense of security?
False sense of security. Maybe that's why the government... it's one of those things. Oh, maybe that's why the government is starting this resilience...
84.
84. The Resilience Academy, you see.
That was Threads.
The Resilience Academy. It's the government, you see. They know stuff. They're getting us ready. But when it all goes... It's like you can't help it, can you? That's where the thinking starts to break up and all the doubt starts coming in people's minds. But anyway, in that movie... it was very realistic, and it showed that network. And I always remember the guys in the bunker at the local council offices.
Yeah.
And they didn't come out very well on it, did they?
No. I don't think anyone came out well in that movie.
It kind of jumped. Nobody did.
To be fair, if you ever ask me what is my favourite horror movie, or my scariest horror movie, Threads is the scariest movie I have ever seen.
I would say... but it's
not a horror movie.
It's not a horror. It was never touted as a horror movie. It's meant to be a representation of reality of what could happen.
Yeah,
and it is more horrific
than a horror movie.
Than a horror movie. So you've got that situation where those that be in charge, let's say, will still want to keep everything as under control as possible.
Yeah, for as long as possible.
And the best thing you can do in any situation is to at least have some control yourself.
Not to be reliant upon that.
As soon as you are reliant on everybody else, I need somebody else.
You're then expendable.
I need somebody else to give me a blanket because I'm freezing. I need somebody else to give me some dry clothes because I'm cold and wet.
We do
I need some food.
We do live in a society that is all well and good for giving people and helping support people. But what happens if that changes?
Yeah. Well, that's another part of this initiative, which I know I keep harking on about it, but it's because it's the beginning of 2024, and I'm really surprised. It's really nice to see government officials actually try to normalise prepping.
Yeah.
And part of that was to say that if you do have people within your community that are, say, disabled, elderly, things like that, to make sure that you kind of focus, figure those individuals into your prepping. Not that you have to prep for them, but part of prepping is you make sure you go over and help them out.
As well, yeah.
You know, if there's a flood coming in, you get that 87-year-old out of their house.
Yeah.
You know,
They may not be part of your family, but it's good to do.
it's good to just widen your
Eyes.
Yeah, well, I'd say, yeah, sort of if you've got like a spider's web around,
Yeah.
you're in the middle of the spider's web,
Mm.
just to identify if anybody in your local community could do with a hand.
Yeah.
Unless you're the kind of person that
Mad Max style.
he just wants to lock all the doors, board everything up, and it's me and me alone.
The Lord Humongous.
The Lord Humongous in my little studded
Jockstrap.
jockstrap and hockey mask.
Hockey mask. Oh, great movie.
Anyway, so there you go. So 2024, there is a lot to be prepping for. I think the main thing that we're going to probably come up against are the extreme weather conditions,
Yes.
fluctuations.
In the summer, it's going to get hot.
As
That's actually going to be fun to actually revisit this podcast.
Yeah, and at this time of recording, we're expecting the wind to swing round from the north next week, and we could potentially be having some snow coming in.
We did have a couple of flakes.
We had a couple of
days ago.
flakes. But if we do get snow coming in over the next week,
Yeah.
mayhem and chaos. Mayhem and chaos. It's going to happen. It's people. I know people moan about the old folk who say, "Oh, it used to be 6 foot deep when I was still going to school in my lace-up shoes," you know. And I'm one of those people now, you know. Knocking on the doors of 60,
Yeah.
I do remember going to school in snowdrifts, and the heating at school had packed up, but we just sat there with our coats on and got on with our school.
Because you had to.
Because you had to.
You didn't get a choice.
Didn't get a
You didn't
choice.
get counselling for it. You just had to do
had
it.
to do it. And the teachers all went into school.
Yeah.
There was many that could walk there. I mean, okay, these days teachers drive in and they might live way out of the area and things like that. I'm not going to get into that big thing, but
No.
what I'm just saying is people are so unused to winter weather in the UK,
Yeah.
in the south in UK.
Mm.
They get a centimetre of snow and there's crashes and everything
It's
is
the end of the
the end of
world.
the world. So, guys, finishing off on that, prep for snow.
Prep for snow.
Prep for snow and prep for a very hot summer, potentially.
Jock straps not included.
Choke straps and hockey masks not included.
So that brings us on to that point in the podcast where we choose the subject for our next exclusive episode.
Hey, we need the hat of mystery. I can see it. Oh, there's...
Oh, did something fall out?
Yeah, it fell out.
Okay,
there.
I'm going to chuck it back in the hat.
There you go. Oh, do I get to pick?
You get to pick.
Oh,
You get to
listeners,
pick.
this is
I
exciting.
mean, I can pass the hat of mystery to you.
I'm
if you
going
want
to be
me to
the
pick.
first one of the year.
First one of the year. There's not that many in there,
Yeah,
actually.
No.
So it's
Once
going to be
we run
interesting
out
to see.
of these, we'll
I
have
can
to...
top them up with all the recent
Right.
episodes that we've been
Right,
doing.
I've got it. I've got one.
Yep. Okay,
Okay.
what is it?
See if you can guess it. Oh, this is going back a bit. Episode 2.
2?
What episode are we on now?
Oh, crikey. This is 82.
82.
So 80
Episodes
episodes ago.
we were doing
Japanese snacks.
Japanese. God, your memory. Japanese snacks. We've got to do a special episode on Japanese snacks.
It's because I see the thumbnail for it all the time.
All right, we got to do a little
I'm editing
special,
all these, yeah.
little special for.
I think we pulled out Japanese snacks too as well.
Yeah.
Not too long ago.
Oh right. Okay then. So anyway, that's for the.
Subject for our next exclusive episode, which we'll be recording subsequently. That will be available for our patrons and YouTube members.
Yay! Anyway, it's been a fun start. We got lots of other things, subjects lined up for 2024.
Oh yeah, we are stacked with subjects.
Yeah, we've got
Loads of things to look forward
more
to.
cryptozoology. We've got model train enthusiasts.
Yeah, we've got fun, frolics, and all sorts of interesting things.
Yeah, we want to learn about new things across the board.
Yeah, it's the New Year's resolution.
Exactly.
The Now We Know show.
Exactly. So hopefully you've taken something from this particular episode. All the best to you. Happy New Year, everybody. Make the most of 2024. It's going to be a good one.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please like and subscribe to this channel and comment below any suggestions of topics or activities you'd like to listen to in future episodes. That's a big resilient goodbye from Zach.
And that's a big I'm prepped goodbye from Buzz. Goodbye.
Fear the Lord Humongous. You can find the Now We Know Show podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Amazon Music, and Apple Podcasts. Keep up to date with everything ZWP on Facebook and Instagram, or visit the Zak Wylde Productions website at www.zakwyldeproductions.com. And remember to join us on Patreon or become a YouTube member for early access content and exclusive episodes.